It's rude.
Wow.
Yeah.
Vern, could you read the previous assessment quickly?
Current budget year's assessment is 156, 636, 636. .63% increase to this year. Real distraction. Search bar. Just. Well, we don't need Jessica for this. In tonight's Dropbox folder, there's one item which is a draft local law, which would allow us to override the state's tax levy limitations. Pursuant to General Municipal Law, Section 3C for the tax year beginning June 1. So consider that introduced, and we need to set a public hearing date to vote on this. So today's the 28th. We need 7 days. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 takes us to the 8th. And so we could hold a public hearing for that at our regular board meeting on the 11th. Or we can do it at our meeting on the 25th. Does anyone have a preference?
I never meet or a preference, but I will be gone for our regular meeting. I'll be traveling.
So you won't be here the 11th.
Right.
No difference either way for me. Well, why don't we set it for the 25th, just so that we don't cut it too close on notification dates, etc. So we will hold a public hearing and notice it accordingly. Unless anyone objects, on proposed local law, I'd like to give it a number, 2024. Our annual tax cap override local law. We'll set that for March 25.
That was enough.
Okay, so that's taken care of. All right. Well, as soon as Jessica gets here, my thoughts for tonight are to go over, we'll start on the expense side of the budget now that we have columns filled in, try to get as much of it clearly defined as possible as to what we're going to have. And then based on that, we'll circle back to the revenue side. There's a couple of items I want to discuss. And then that'll give us a sense of where we are with respect to tax rate. And whether we have some decisions to make terms of spending or otherwise, depending on what that rate looks like. My expectation is that the rate will increase this year. See what next year looks like with the increased assessments that everyone just got. Water and sewer, I would then like to tackle on Monday night. And then if all goes well, we should have a budget buttoned up by then and not need an additional budget discussion. Short of the public hearing in April. Change things. She's gonna be there. Made it.
I wish I had some new boots and
We thought you were.
it's on.
We thought you were we thought you were mid baseball
Wait.
bat.
Do you think that
Pretty sad,
I,
milk curtains.
it's not snuck off to see Trumbo Shorty instead?
I mean, we would have forgiven.
I couldn't get the notes.
Okay, so we, in your absence, introduced draft local law. You entered the number there of 2024, which is our tax cap override.
Okay,
We have set the public hearing for that local law for our second March meeting.
okay,
So March 25.
okay,
No, the draft law is in the Dropbox folder for tonight's meeting.
okay.
Then we'll just need to get it properly noticed,
Very good.
et cetera. Here to myself.
Water and sewer both, we're doing Monday, right?
Water and sewer, we will do Monday.
Okay.
Okay. So we're gonna start on the expense side of the budget, go through all of these lines, and now that they are entered on the sheets that we now have. I put I tagged the village board, and deputy mayor, et cetera, those spending lines to come back and readdress if we need to. Look for places to trim. We tentatively increase those lines. Let's see, just going right down the sheet. Auditor contractual, that 18,304, Jess, is that a firm number or is that an estimate?
Which line, I'm sorry?
Auditor contractual,
That is an estimate. He should have a number for me, he said by the end of the week.
your estimate or his estimate?
It's just 3% increase.
It's not it's not real. You want me to, I can delete it if that's probably smarter.
No, I want a number in there that we're gonna stick with regardless of what his number comes in at.
So it went up, well, if I'm pulling up the sheet
Sorry, I'm
now.
looking at the wrong.
I think it's-
Worse.
Yeah,
We don't have, okay,
but it went up 200, I think, over year prior. 2023 was, so I don't know if you want to
yeah,
do.
I was looking at
these.
18,304 is clerk salary or part of clerk salary. Okay,
Yeah.
so auditor contractual, let's put in 15,000.
Okay. Could you say the number?
A3 1320.4.
Or line 56.
Thank you.
And we'll just go right down the line from there.
Put in 15,000. Okay.
Yes. So we have payroll, every payroll line we see is 3% increase, so 18,304. 5835. Equipment line 500. For discussion, clerk treasurer contractual, A1325.4.
And I'm not sure if this is the appropriate place to put it, but I did see in other municipality budgets that that's where they
That's
put
fine.
it. So there is a worksheet that I gave, the small 8.5 by 11 in front of you. It is also in Dropbox. Should I be speaking or were you gonna say things? I'm sorry.
Feel free, I was gonna say things, but yeah. Jessica and I have been talking about the work breakdown in the front office and time spent on which tasks, and you'll be able to see on this 8.5 by 11 sheet the amount of work that is essentially what we'll call clerical side of the treasurer's job.
Mhm.
And we've discussed the possibility of, rather than looking at, so for years we off and on had a third person, a part-time deputy clerk or someone in addition to the clerk and treasurer previously. My thought was that we may be able to take advantage of the potential, I haven't talked to her about it yet, but the potential availability of the current town of Ulysses bookkeeper who was an independent contractor, and use her as a part-time bookkeeper for the village. We still have yet to hear from Dwayne, unless you've talked to him about it.
I have not.
About functionally, if there's anything that we need to watch out for. Let's get an answer from Dwayne
Okay.
early this week. To do the, Jessica can explain in more detail, to do the abstracts, to do invoicing, to do invoice reconciliation. Because right now what we're seeing is, if you look at the top line of the sheet, between the two individuals in the front office now, they're over 40 hours a week of work. And there are, on any given week, depending on whether it's water billing week or budget season or property tax season, there are a number of items that I won't say are slipping through the cracks, but we meet weekly, or we're actually moving to bi-weekly. Myself and Jessica and Jen, to make sure that we don't lose track of things. So with a bookkeeper whose job is just to do the invoicing side of things, that would free up Jessica and Jennifer to be able to spend more time focusing on those things that the mayor throws at them. And so that those things don't disappear. So that $20,000 is an approximation of what it might cost to subcontract that out. If we can, and I have not had this conversation, and I realize that this meeting is live streaming, but I have not had the conversation with the town of Ulysses bookkeeper about this. If she were willing, we would be lucky to have her. If she's not willing, then we've got some searching to do. Anything you want to add? in terms of color?
No, I think that's great. And just to highlight, you see how is this possibly working? Well, because when we're deep doing, say, budget work, then that means I'm not doing other things. That's how it manages to be roughly in the 40 hours a week livable while you're over. And if you can see that the majority of my time in treasurer land is spent entering invoices. So that means we get a piece of paper or a digital copy. It has to be created into the system of data entry. And Jen is doing some of that, but it's not a strong point in her toolbox. And also her time is largely spent, as you can see, really being face forward to the public and dealing with the inquiries that come in, which is one of arguably even the most important role of the clerk's office, right, to answer to the public. So it's a pretty simple thing to say, here's data entry that happens. I review all of the abstracts before I present it to the board. So there's a chance to catch an error there. And then they're reviewed again before the checks are cut. So we'll confirm with Dwayne, but it seems a pretty low stakes thing that would easily free up a big chunk of time.
We could certainly have it, we could hire a part-time deputy clerk if we could find one. And we could have that person doing some of this, but then we're taking on state retirement funding, we're taking on.
It would be much more expensive.
Well, I think it'd be better to use a subcontractor too. I think that's
Yeah.
a really good idea.
The big items currently, obviously, we're a water billing utility at this point. EMS billing, as we'll get to later, EMS billing is significant, and there is supposed to be a records reconciliation that needs to be done through the treasurer's office that is not being done as regularly as it should be currently. Those are two big time consuming things that, frankly, never existed a long time ago.
So I'm excited about the prospect of having 10 extra hours a week to tackle those projects, to do a better job stewarding the water program. And frankly, also this 3850 is based on Blixie's actual that I mined from the town. Budget, so it could be less. I mean, the bookkeeper, it could be less, but I can't imagine it'd be less than 35.
We
An hour.
also, and
I
we'll,
don't think it would be.
we'll
Yeah.
touch on this at the State of the Village. We did get notification this week that the DEC grant for electric charging stations that was awarded and unawarded has been reawarded. And then we also, within the same few days, got notification that Assemblymember Kellis, that our request to her office for an additional $150,000 of funding to bring that charging, the amount of money we'll have available to spend on charging stations up to the number that will give us access to rapid chargers, that has been approved.
So it's an applause break. I feel like
So
Oh.
this is a big deal.
But with the big deal comes, just like the storm drainage culvert award money from former Assembly Member Lifton, there's a formal paperwork, it's mainly paperwork, but it's a formal application process to be able to receive the money. It has been approved to be awarded, so that's a fair amount of red tape that needs to be properly done in the clerk's office. And we need to get that ball rolling. So that's more work on the front office's plate in short order. So I don't know if there's any other thoughts. We're making do the way it is, but I think either adding a third person as an employee or contracting out part of the work it's time. So any other thoughts?
I think that's correct.
Okay.
Great.
The highlight off that. Clerk treasurer training. That's mostly NICOM, yeah.
Yes. I gobbled up some of that budget learning Williamson law books and Jennifer some with the water training program with Badger.
Okay, then we get more payroll on the deputy clerk treasurer personal line. Law contractual, I'm going to suggest keeping that at 10,000 for this line. This particular line is general legal questions, not specific to another department. Zoning has its own legal line, EMS has its own legal line. This would be, hey guy, we've got a question on,
donating to nonprofits.
yeah, perfect.
What happened with the deputy clerk personal line?
So there were a lot of, the way that the lines had been split out in the prior budget didn't line up with the actual position. So I am clerk treasurer is a full-time position. Then there's a deputy clerk and a deputy treasurer. So I'm just making the lines match up. Is that the question you're asking?
Is there a dollar figure that should go in on line 63?
No, that's why it's grayed out. That it's an erroneous
Okay.
budgeting from the past year.
Or that's where we would put a third.
Right, that's where like a
Employee.
Morgan type person goes.
Okay.
We could put a third employee in that line if we were going that route, but we're not. But we'll keep it. So law contractual is 10. Engineering contractual is always one of those tricky ones because it kind of depends on what grants we apply for that year. I'm going to suggest keeping it at 12.5. And we're certainly over this year for a number of reasons, but I don't know that we see anything major.
I was trying to think through this with Dusty because the same thing happens on water and sewer budgets too. And I don't know of anything large off the top of my head.
We apply for that, we'd rather be water.
Right. I think there's, if anything, there's more stuff under water. Probably not even sewer, honestly. But yeah, I don't, for as far as general, nothing's come to mind.
And there's
There
something
is,
related
like, we
to,
tried moving forward. I feel like we could try something like DRI. I was just reading about Cuga, the village of Cuga did a joint application with a bunch of other, I think there's no shortage as long as engineering includes MRB's much broader scope of work, right?
Right, it does. So that's why that 4887 is as high as it is in some of the grants we applied for. Right.
And there's nothing related to sidewalks, right? That would happen.
We already applied,
Okay.
so I don't think there's a new application pending for next.
I mean, there will be work for the stream bank on Greg Street, but that's also, we've had grants coming. Well, I actually don't. A lot of that might happen before June even. I think they're supposed to get this report in the next month or so, so. Yeah, it's a little hard to put your finger in the air on some of these.
And Vern, I apologize. I wanted to say one other thing in the contractual line for clerk treasurer.
Yeah.
I don't know if you were considering any amount of funding through the levy for digitization of records, but I got some rough numbers in case you were thinking that it's like a $20,000 project. To do the 100 boxes or more. There are grants available, as we know. If you wanted to do some of the boxes, like the 25 that are the capital projects. I don't know. Yeah, I just wanted you to have some.
I don't think we're gonna stick that in. the
Okay,
expense lines.
Okay.
Related to engineering, but a little bit broader, is there an easy way? From your position to see kind of the breakdown of what projects the current year or like past years for engineering have been? Otherwise, I could also ask MRB if they have a quick way of pulling.
So that MRB is going to be able to find it better
Kind of
than
my thought.
especially for past years. This year is easier because I've made notes that
Okay,
are clear to me.
yeah.
Um,
Let me ask them if they have like an easy quick way of doing like a breakdown, because
okay,
I think that might help
I have a feeling. they can.
inform anything going forward, so.
Actually, it does raise an interesting question. There aren't any actuals in here. Are there?
Well, the blue is actual. The white is projected, year to date projected forward. So
Right, but like looking back.
for which one?
Have,
Oh, in past years?
That was also a question, especially water and sewer, seeing past years actuals would be very helpful. If are they in here and just collapsed, or are they not?
It's
let's
in-
see projected and adopted. It would be nice to see adopted and actual.
This is a sheet that I stole from Norton, so
Yeah, it's probably.
I can add that. Is that something that is relevant for this budget cycle or something you would like to see?
It is, yeah. Definitely.
I
don't know
was,
why they're not there. I mean, I didn't.
yeah, I was thinking of it particularly when talking with Dusty, because it looks like we are budgeting quite a bit less in some of these budget lines. When we think about it rationally, it's like, oh, it seems about right. But then if we're constantly going over, I'd like to see that history to be able to kind of put a finger in the air and be like, are we actually under, or are we actually, we've always been under? What's the right piece to understand there?
So hopefully that's something that exists in the treasurer's files historically.
It would be in the old spreadsheets.
Okay. How many years back? And everybody's thinking this is something that you're trying to have, this being Wednesday, Jen's out all day tomorrow for Monday.
And I can pull it from the old sheets. I don't think it's that. It doesn't need to go, a year or two, it's fine.
Yeah, I would think like. Yeah, 2 would be nice, I think. So we're looking at kind of this year and then 2 prior years.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, engineering contractual keep the same. Elections, there's no village election scheduled for 2025.
So what do you want to put there?
0.
0.
Building personnel, janitorial staff, 6,600. Building equipment, we had zeroed out last year. Any items of equipment we know we're gonna need to buy? This is basically front office.
No.
Office building contractual. We've held that in low 20s every year. Looks like. It's been 23, then 23.5, then 23.5 the last couple of years. Looks like we're a little over this year. I penciled in 25,000 for that line, unless there's any reason we think. And this is kind of This line has always been the catch-all for paper towels,
Toilet paper.
toilet paper.
So,
kitchens.
and there, Gordon, I don't know if you can see the note on your screen, but there, the note describes some of why this is higher than projected. There,
I don't have the note. What is it?
oh, okay, so the current spend includes the bookkeeping consultant services. From that we had E-code fee, and then we incorporated tax glance as a new program. And then there were some corrections on W-2s, which pretty much accounts for the overage.
Oh, okay.
So one-time overages, so we're probably not gonna see a huge increase. Like I said, I penciled in 25,000. We maybe could hold it at the 23.5, but I think 25 gives us a little bit of cushion. Unless there's anyone who thinks we should be much higher or much lower.
I can leave it at 25, but I'm gonna highlight it
Sure.
if we get to this port old terror at the end.
Building maintenance and repairs.
Only thing I might, sorry, I can say is, came up recently, late of, what happened at town hall. Where Chief sent me a message about thinking again about building security. For the front offices regarding cameras and maybe buzzing people in. There was a man who was irate about tax assessments. Or in the town hall, that we said we called it.
Oh, wow.
It was a court. This was so out of control. Just thought I'd bring that up because
Yeah,
I think it's something we may have talked about before. And just that incident brought it back to the service.
well, I mean, Chief and I have talked about it before, and I think he's long wanted cameras throughout the building.
We do have I think he's satisfied with the cameras right now, though, no? He might want more, but he can see the front door. He suggested to me plexiglass over the window and a buzzer to be able to buzz directly. Which I don't know, that plexiglass certainly wouldn't be very much money. I don't know about a buzzer.
Was.
Like an alarm button, panic button.
Oh,
To get directly to the
Oh,
police
yeah, yeah.
station. I don't know how expensive that is, but it can't be crazy.
Yeah, something to continue.
I know a
to
mechanic that could do that.
So.
I don't know that that would necessarily, well, it might impact this line, but it wouldn't be a huge expense.
No.
Unless we're adding a bunch of cameras, but if he's satisfied with the camera situation.
I think he's relatively satisfied. He suggested one more inside the office, but that was the other change. I think.
Yeah, well, let's leave that at 25 for the moment and keep it highlighted, so we can come back to it. Either way.
Okay, and the 6,000 projected for the next line for Excel line 70 includes the carpet and some paint, so that's not expected for next year.
Okay.
So building maintenance, I would suggest leaving the same at 2,000.
Okay. Unless, is this where I should say, do we need to replace any roof, foundation?
No,
Crazy.
it wouldn't come out of that line. It would come out of building reserve.
Okay,
Gas and electric, we have a $5,500 estimate. I think that's fine. Buildings insurance, Jess, have you combined a bunch of the insurance lines into this?
yes. I moved all the general liability and building insurances that had been split out to DPW and police. No, police didn't have it. We split out to DPW and some others into this one line. We are, and I will be receiving an actual breakdown of what how the premium is attributed to the various assets, so we can assess things by department, as I think you had requested. Gordon.
So it's up to this board. So I told Jessica it was okay to combine this previously and since time immemorial. The liability insurance quote has been broken out by department. For the only reason I can think it was ever initially broken out by department is to have a sense or to see what each department is costing from a liability perspective.
Mhm.
That practice probably dates back to a time when we only had a DPW. And I actually find it, with the exception of EMS and fire, because we have contracts that we charge other places for. I don't know that it's a useful way of doing it. It doesn't help this year because now we don't have anything to compare apples to apples from previous year to this year, but going forward, it'll give us a better sense of what our liability insurance looks like on all things not EMS and fire. If we want to keep it the way it was before, then Jessica can re-break that out.
Except it didn't have the police separated out. It was like just DPW. So it's interesting. It sort of needs to be like all the ways or not the ways. And I will point out though, Roden, that the 47,016 is actual cost. And so then that's, so there's that number. And the year prior, you're right, I don't have, but I do have.
I'm
So
fine
what-
with that as is. I see no problem with that. So except as you point out, like if we're contracting externally and we have some reason, I don't. Seems like a needless complication.
Okay.
Okay,
Building IT contractual. That is,
I think this is just the web, right?
no, we have a.
that's
website.
HPM services.
Really, only 120 a month.
Yeah, but that's if you have no concerns. So if you need help, then the
Got it, then-
billable hours are different.
Hmm.
So let me make, and I think I padded it a little bit.
No, we don't need to recalculate. Just want to know who that is.
Okay.
Which after this migration.
Oh, I see FLX website's lower down in here.
Yeah.
A couple lines down.
Workers' comp insurance down ever so slightly. This is workers' comp. Workers' comp is broken out by department elsewhere in the spreadsheet. So this is basically front office workers' comp. Everyone's healthy. Telephone is what it is. We still have landlines. Web design is what it is. Central garage equipment. Ben, you know why that's.
Yeah, that, no, we were initially thinking of including extra money for taking care of T-Bird to get a watering, well, for us to get a watering tank and cart that taking care of T-Bird volunteers can use to water all the flower boxes. We have already actually purchased that, so this can go back down to 7,000.
Oh,
I will not make that change because I think you've been updating this, but
we purchased it.
we've already purchased it, yeah. And parts of it are already there.
When did we do? Should we pay them? Have I paid them?
I think
can ask
Dusty
you offline.
ordered it like a week or two ago. I think
Oh.
I said I approved it in an email.
Okay, fantastic. So I'll delete that. Great, 7,000.
So you could take the note out and just.
Also,
go
they
back to
applied
the
for a
7,000.
grant that would cover it. You applied for a grant. Okay.
Yes, that's, yeah, worth saying. We applied for a grant that would cover the cost if we're awarded it through the county.
Okay, next line is central garage building repairs. What are we fixing?
Yeah, so the thing on the added addition is the overhead door replacement for some of the garages or some of the garage doors that we have. They are the automatic up and down doesn't work. And so they're replacing them. It's actually a huge inconvenience during salting and spreading that they have to keep like hauling everything out and getting out of the truck, getting back in, closing it back and forth. So this is an improvement for them. So I think though, now that I'm looking at this, I think Dusty put in that's the extra 4,000 on top of the 10 that we're projecting. But I don't know why the 10 is what we're projecting. It's a good question. Because it looks like we've only used not even 4. And I
Let me
don't
see
know,
if I can answer that.
and I don't know if we have much more in the plan.
Wasn't some of the garage door work going to be done this budget year?
It could be possibly. Includes intended.
He was saying that it didn't happen and
Oh,
it will happen, and that's what that
okay.
money is, that the garage door didn't happen, but will happen next year. But what he's intending to do with the rest, I'm not sure. I'll see if I made a note.
Yeah, I could go back and I think he took the 10,000 and put another 4,000 on top for the doors, but I guess the question that is worth asking is why why isn't the 4,000 as part of that 10,000? So I can take that note and get back to him.
Let's check out.
Cause you think there's money left, you said?
Well, just that, like, I think we've been budgeting, it looks like 10,000 a year for general repairs. Why is the 4,000 not just part of that? Why is it?
Oh, gotcha. Gotcha.
Okay, we'll highlight that and come back to it after you check with Dusty. Next line is DPW contractual.
I apologize. I have some information about the building repairs that just popped up. They need a new roof on the DPW office.
That isn't, yeah, that is another thing that, well, not a new roof. I think it needs repairs. The chimney broke and damaged some of the roof, but I don't think it's a new roof. I think.
How much of that? So if they've spent 4,000,
And they were gonna get a lot of materials. I think Dusty said he was already gonna try and get all the shingles and such in this budget year. Let me,
So it's still the same question, but.
Yeah.
more information.
the next line is DPW contractual. Looks like we're about on pace. $1,000 bump. Is that DPW contractual? Is that salt?
don't know what goes in that.
So snow removal contractual.
I can pull that up and tell you. Okay, would someone tell me that account number, A16?
1640.4.
Okay, so the land port system is in there. Small supplies are in there from like Agway. Odessa sand and gravel goes into that when they do stuff, all their little supplies, everything from Napa. It is not salt.
So we're expecting a little bump in that this year.
Yeah. Right, so small repairs. Did I answer the question or do you need more?
No, question is, it was 18.5. We're probably not gonna spend 18.5. Why do we need 19.5?
Right.
Yeah.
Good question.
It's a Dusty question. I don't know what his intentions are there.
I can follow up on that one as well.
Let's drop to 18.5 and then check with Dusty. What's going on. Gas and electric on the next line looks right, 1,500, 2,500 for training. Fuel drops a little bit, that's nice, 7,500. We have a liability and building insurance line that's blank, is that because that's combined? in the
Correct.
bigger number above, okay. DPW workers' comp is separated out. That increase is due to experience in that department.
I have a question about the telephone line.
Mhm.
So there's a employee reimbursement for cell phones that goes through the payroll.
Yeah.
But had been accounted for in this telephone line.
Okay.
But I find that interesting, and if we're reimbursing them. If we're reimbursing them through payroll, it becomes an expense and it's a taxable reimbursement for them. So it has all these other consequences, and I'm not really sure why cell phone reimbursement would go on this telephone line. It should be sort of like a stipend or something. It feels like. Or I can answer that question at a different time, but then I should drop in what the actual is because they will be getting reimbursed. for
Should be
some things.
dropping in the actual into this line.
It's just odd that no other stipend reimbursement gets allocated like that. So it'll be 3,576 this year, but I believe the drop is changing the amount of employees.
So we'll just leave it at 3,500.
You want to leave it at 3,500 or the? I didn't populate the 1,500. It's 600 per employee, so.
Yeah, we should leave it at the same as it was in last budget cycle,
So 35.
3,500. Because we're obligated to pay that per their collective bargaining agreement.
Okay,
Community association dues, 2,000, and then we get on to police. So police looks like a small increase over last year's budgeted number. I believe we are scheduled to come in under budget this year. Chief is still attempting to find a third full-time officer that he wants, and possibly combining that with the position of sergeant who recently retired, maybe combining that into a single full-time position. So I believe that this number includes the math on that.
also, coverage for, a part-time police clerk. To
Right.
learn.
And,
Any takers on that yet?
Chief Amy's
Any
eventual replacement.
applications?
Some applications, but no,
No, okay.
no, movement beyond that I can report today.
Any questions on the police personal services line?
And as you're factoring it into, we're gonna think that it's a full-time sergeant, whereas prior we had a part-time sergeant.
Okay, police equipment, looks like goes up nominally, police contractual nominally. Fuel remains the same. Vehicle maintenance, is to be bumped nominally. Insurance, that's a drop, is that because of the combination up above, or is that?
Workers' comp insurance.
No, police.
Yeah, the police insurance rather. This is their vehicles,
Vehicles, okay.
so it's based
Nice.
on actual with a 7% increase.
It's training, let's see, I'm out of order here. It's police training 2,000, that stays the same. Okay, police workers comp. Looks like a slight bump.
Again, based on actual. So it was under projected.
Police telephone, roughly the same. Small equipment is the same. Uniform and vests, a slight bump. Traffic control. That's the actual physical traffic control devices.
Oh, like the speed thingies and stuff. Okay.
The flashing lights across from the school.
Yeah.
So. Any questions on PD?
Didn't see the crossing guard.
We have a
Isn't
separate.
that a
line.
separate?
Separate.
Sounds
Further down, yeah. Fire is all predetermined based on the budget that was adopted by the towns in the fall. So let's skip right through all of these lines.
And what's the disability, the blank
Which one?
line 115, disability insurance for the fire department? Looks like maybe it's going somewhere else.
It's going on 83410,432, which is
Blank.
blank. What? Okay, yeah, let me look into that. I'll highlight it. Thank you.
It's always been very small.
Right, so what that would be though is, it's the portion of the shelter point disability for the clerk and the deputy clerk. It's a small fraction of our salary, so I'll populate that number. It's like $75. In fact, we could put
75 in there.
Yeah. With confidence. Good
75.
catch, Carver, thank you.
75.
Yeah,
Let's see. Office. Just check. Sure all my numbers match. Year management program should remain at 5,000.
Okay. Out of curiosity, will there be another expense this year? We do like, kind of can't remember. We pay them when we deposit the horns, when we send it to them. Is that how that works?
This is all for corn and feed and
Okay,
batteries for the feeders.
okay. Oh, right. Okay, good.
Dumpsters,
Dumpsters, right. Okay,
repairs
thank
to the
you.
cooler.
That's the dumpsters actually, significant there. Perfect. Thank you.
Safety inspection, this is code enforcement, personal lines going up. We discussed this last year, a 2-year step increase to pay for a code enforcement officer. This is the second year of the increase. Safety inspection equipment, I don't know, I don't have notes.
He would like a laptop. His laptop is failing.
Okay,
And the next line, then you probably can't see for contractual. Yeah, I believe he's spoken to the board before about purchasing software that will expedite billing, permitting, all of that, and also keep it in a digital record. That the initial spend for that is $7,500, and then it's $5,500 annually every year after. He functions entirely out of Microsoft Word and Excel. And I'm sure we could get more details on that if we needed.
See what else you
It's laborious.
people like this. I do.
Oh. This like integrates with the actual, like you can imagine anyone you want to explain maybe like the workflow form. So like you need this form, then it also is automatically going to give you the packet that you need as an applicant to fill it out. Make sure you've got all the things updated with current code readily into a database. And more substantial thing that he sees will be a significant labor savings for him. And beyond that, he would need to advocate for himself.
Certainly open to the idea. I don't think it's been discussed.
It hasn't been discussed. Okay.
Yeah, might be nice just to know, just to give like, yeah, his 2 cents on it might be nice.
Okay.
Even if it was just even over email or something.
Would you like an email synopsis of the,
yeah, if he would email the board with a synopsis of what the software will do for him
okay,
and or the department, that would be helpful. We'll leave that highlighted for the moment.
okay.
Safety inspection training remains the same. Transportation's been moved to a different line. Let's see, safety inspection legal, code legal, I think we can leave as the same. Fuel is nice and low, and then we get to our friends at EMS. Also predetermined this fall. Let me just make sure my numbers are the same.
There's one number I definitely want to check with you, Gordon, and that's the retirement. Oh, guess we'll get to that lower down.
This is called an immunization. Didn't we have 500 in the budget? Did we
Yeah, I
eliminate
was
that
looking
in the
at that.
fall?
Disability is missing on this one too. I don't have that budget. In front of me, but I can't imagine we would have gotten rid of it. I think they're
No, so
required.
they are required. We hadn't had any yet. So you think that it must be have fallen off? Okay, let me look at that too.
Put the 500 back in there.
And the disability.
Yeah,
It's just-
You should double check disability, but I would say at least put 6,500 in again. just
It must be
as a placeholder.
popular.
We-
Okay.
We've got another
Should be.
line number at in the notes section. I don't know if that's.
Oh, yeah, we do. Let's look at that.
that should be directly from the EMS fall budget with the town.
So it is down there. Thank you for that note. Excel line 204 is also labeled disability. That is the real account code for the disability. And so that's 4,320, and that's from their budget. So I'm not sure what to do with this erroneous disability line. That is
Interesting.
blank.
Just delete it. Delete it.
Okay,
We changed the note to moved to, and then that line, so that it-
yeah.
I
Where's
don't
it?
trip
And it
on
ended
that
up
again.
being what, 4,000 what?
It's down below, it's 430.
It says EMS disability for 4320.
Oh,
Ben, monitor lease. This is not what we've been putting money into a reserve account for. We were funding a reserve account to pay for something over time. Was that the Zoll contract?
Yes, this is not that.
This is not that. Okay. Just confirming.
And the fire disability is also moved to the correct code in the 900, so I will gray out that line above. So it's
Okay, so you can delete the 75.
Yep, I did. Yep, and I'll make the move to Notion.
Ambulance legal. Previously at 10, right? Last year at 10.
And our tradition is we put it at 10, then we use it less than we think we're going to.
We're gonna need at least 10. If you told me 20, I wouldn't tell you you're crazy. And this is where I don't, is 3 what we had in the budget, the fall budget?
This should be the fall budget.
So this would be a perfect example of how we get to eat these costs. That the
Yeah.
town doesn't, that the town never has to bother with.
right.
We might be able to keep it at 10.
I mean, in fairness, we've never even gotten this. Like, I know we don't have the history there, but
We're gonna be over 10 this week.
I think we are. I think we're gonna get there, but,
No, like this week.
Oh,
so there's, yeah, go ahead.
So whether we want, starting in the June 1 year, to think we can get it back down to 10.
Oh,
God,
now we're just game.
100%. But it can't be 3.
No,
Let's call it 12.
I think we spent 3 today.
Well, I mean, I still feel like that's a little conservative.
15?
It really just depends so much on how things develop, like it's possible. I mean, it's a shot in the dark either way. Let's, call it 15,
Keep it highlighted.
you come back if we. A terror and later.
Okay. You'll want to come back to that after. The end of the meeting.
Yeah.
Street administration, personal, that's a supervisor.
and also I wanted to point out that I discovered that the labor allocation for Dusty's efforts was oddly skewed. It was only 20% here prior, and like 70% in water and 10% in sewer. So we adjusted to to be closer to what he actually does by his estimation, which would be 50%.
So that should have been.
We can change this
That's
adjustment.
70% of water was Michael.
Then we'll change it. So that's why I'm explaining now. I got it right. I inherited all the allocations. I don't know
Right,
where they came from.
right, because the supervisor is supposed to be our primary water operator on paper.
Okay,
Certainly not how it's breaking down.
Whether or not he's delegating that responsibility or not. That's
Right.
so again, so we can change the numbers. This represents 50%. It was 20. And so then he's got 40 in water.
head and sewer.
Yeah.
Let's highlight it and come back to it if we need to,
Okay,
when we need to. We have the shop foreman stipend, we have the rest of the crew, and this is for how many FTEs?
FTDs.
Full-time.
Oh.
Full-time
It is,
equivalents,
it is for 4.
or not including the supervisor, got it.
Sorry, this is one person. I apologize. We're planning a crew of 4. This is for one person stipend. This is one stipend. We
No,
pay.
sorry, not stipend. Personal service.
Oh, personal service. Oh, yeah, then I answered the correct question. Yes, no, 3 employees, not. Wait, 1, 2,
We're still,
3.
He's looking to still get it full, 4 including himself, but with summer help is his focus. I hope that's in here. If it's not, I can double check.
Well, the
with
summer
him.
help was also a grant. I believe it's not in here.
Right, so we've gone through the town in the past, but I think Dusty had an idea of something maybe larger than that, so I can double check with him.
Summer help is definitely not in.
Okay, I'll check with him on summer.
all right, street maintenance equipment, this looks like it's zeroed out. Is there no plan to buy anything? Other than reserve spending?
It's an equipment line. I think that they just moved that into the general equipment. Sorry, I guess you probably know more.
No, it's just not been funded or used. It wasn't used in 21, 22, 22, 23.
Doing most of those purchases out of a reserve when needed. Street maintenance contractual. Looks like it's the same. Chips is a 1-year spend instead of 2. Street maintenance reimbursement, nothing there. Bridges, nothing there. Okay.
So make sure that that chips is accurate.
The current spend?
Well, so Dusty has an idea so quick synopsis with the CHIPS money, we have a significant amount of money that the state is holding for us that we have not been going through. And Dusty would like to use that towards a new dump truck. But if that's the case, then this line needs to be quite a bit higher, and then the reimbursement as revenue above needs to come in. And Dusty and I talked about this, and I don't know why it's not reflecting. Let me see if it's in the.
He thinks he can use CHIPS funds for a dump truck?
Yeah, he's had a number of conversations with them at this point that it's available for equipment, and it sounds like the town also does it this way. So there's like 4 different buckets, and they all have to be used slightly differently, but he's gone around and done quite a bit of legwork on sorting this out,
There's nothing in
but
the,
it's not in the.
he didn't do it in his budget
Okay.
sheets.
We'll check with him on that too.
Okay.
Okay. Street maintenance reimbursement. Snow removal person. That's 10,750, seems fair. Snow removal equipment.
He wants to repair the salter is what the expense was, why it was so high.
Okay, so drop that from 16 down to 5, that's nice. Snow removal contractual, that's gotta be solved.
Yes.
Street lighting contractual, why is that blank?
Because I don't know how to calculate that for you. I'm not really sure. So we have 17,580. Do I assume that the lights will be the same moving forward? Or is it an exact by month, or does the days get lighter and so we spend less? It looks like it's consistent. It's been 25, 24, 24.
I would check the previous years, prior years' actuals.
Okay.
I don't know that that's ever gone over by much. So we'll just punch in 24,000 and leave it highlighted to double check.
Okay.
Sidewalk contractual, remind me what we're spending there. We've only spent 1,300.
Yeah, let me pull that back up. Sidewalk contractors, so we've got the plan. So actually, I don't think we've identified it yet. We've kind of switched to doing sidewalk in the early springtime. So it's out of this budget year. So his plan there is to do the corner of South and Main Street by the library where it's all kind of heaved up in there. But we have not yet identified, this time next year, but we do know that we want to always be doing a chunk of sidewalk.
So is 10 gonna be good?
That's what he projected.
Yeah, that's what he's been putting in, so. Okay, follow his lead. I think the idea is to continue looking at more repairing smaller sections rather than doing a net new larger build. We've kind of addressed some of the really net needed larger builds. And right now it'd be better to get towards some of these smaller sections that are in need.
Okay, and off-street parking, we'll leave at 0. That's our municipal parking lots, unless Dusty knows of anything that would be done majorly there.
There was actually, someone brought up striping this parking lot out here, which is larger conversation because it's not just ours. I'm not ready to put money against it, but it's a conversation that might start.
We did also talk at one point, not that this is reflected in here. In agreement with McGuire's Conservatory. Right, having those be reserved for public parking in some way during some time, so probably not something that's concrete in the budget for, but just to sort of raise that again, so it doesn't fall off radars.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe after hours. If the building is occupied during the day, it'll be reserved for that. Okay, anything on DPW?
I think so.
All right, TCR, I believe we are going to have to zero out.
That has actually not been paid yet,
You're gonna have to hold it.
hold the payment. Okay. Okay,
Three Falls LDC, I'm going to, I think 20,000 is good. I was thinking about 30, but I think 20,000 is what we did this past year. We should have that available this year, unless you think we should bump it.
So for the youth commission. I will have to double check this and apologize, I didn't do it before today, but I think we should assume that's 3% increase, which is 37,056.
okay.
And I can just double check, I forget if it was 2 or 3 that we had in our budgeting for this year.
37506.
Yes.
Oh, 5%. Yeah, that's weird.
Let's see, library, Marcia's done a lot of research on all of our outside organizations. I think assuming we get accurate accounting and so on, as we've discussed, I think we should keep the
Keep it at
library,
5.
keep the library flat.
Read.
So,
Unless there's a strong desire to make a change in that line.
and then I can send that check for this year.
I don't have a need to change it unless we hear something that would otherwise change our mind back from the library. Otherwise, I think
Right.
5 is a good place to be.
I will just, as a note. I feel like maybe decisions were concretized kind of in a way when I missed the last meeting, so I'd like to circle back to some of this later. But I think as we're just cruising through. Let's just keep moving.
I missed the first part what you said.
Like on the TCR piece. I think I may have missed like finalizing decisions on these, and I'd like to circle back for the moment. I don't think it's worth doing. I think we should keep moving, but.
Okay.
Just as a note.
Don't let me forget, because
I don't know as if it got any more. I think it just seems kind of obvious what way we're leaning, but I think we should actually make a call one way or another at our next meeting.
Agreed.
yeah, but don't let me forget, because if there's anything you want to circle back to, because I will certainly forget.
Yeah,
at this point.
oh, I won't.
Museum, that's a historical society contractual.
To my knowledge, we can't do that one either.
That has also not been paid this fiscal year. Isn't, that was like a double sneeze. That's pretty impressive.
So I am not sure that we can't do that one, as long as there is better. Accounting of. Because we have a village historian, bless you, who can and does only do so much. We don't actually have historical record keeping. Per se, in the village, for the village.
I think we can contract the record keeping and that's it. I have that part of the law saved somewhere.
For that dollar amount, we could probably draft something with the Historical Society if they're willing to sign it. Which states that for that dollar amount, they are keeping historical records of XYZ importance or what have you.
So I think, Marsh, we had talked about just doing a broader contractual line, right? I don't think, like, for us to budget these numbers, we don't have to have contracts in place and we don't have to answer these questions. So I would encourage us to just call it 1,500 or 15,000 or whatever number we pick,
I say
And
10,
then-
maybe 10.
right? And just go from there. I don't,
And then can we bring up,
even if it's just.
can we just budget 12,000 for contractual, say?
I don't think so.
And then we have to have those contracts in order to,
I think we have to itemize what it's spending.
because I want to add one, actually. I have had conversations with the food pantry and they are in desperate need of funds to buy milk and food for things that are not supplied by the southern tier, especially with the cost of food and everything now. They did submit. I will tell you, and this is just for consideration, board.
There,
Let's hold up.
Wanna wait?
Let's go back to Historical Society.
Okay,
Do we feel that they fall into? If properly worded, so this is actually, to Ben, to your point, this is part of the conversation about some of these other lines. I don't believe that we could properly word anything to allow us to give money to TCR. Based on the
Yeah.
conversations with Guy. Because they don't have a way to, they don't have a deliverable.
Of course they do.
you cannot, if
100%
they're
do
private,
the same grant writing and whatever that,
but
right?
they're,
I think recreation fields is a public service and public good that we've identified repeatedly throughout our comp plan and a myriad of different ways. And to say that they're helping us do that and providing concrete services on the way to get there. I think it's very much a service that we do.
Understood, but they have not historically done any of the things that would qualify as the deliverable.
Oh, and they totally have.
and they're
I mean, they're
also
looking for
private.
grants.
It is in the NICOM law that you cannot give to like a little league or a private rec program or an
They are not
association.
that, right? They're a broad public service that we would be engaging for a specific purpose, the same way that we would like. Right, they provide, I mean, you could, right, they're looking for grants, they're doing all of that administrative work. I think that's 100% billable service.
I disagree under how the law is written. I disagree that they are a fundable thing. And it's not because I don't want to fund them. I'm just saying that by law, I don't believe that we can do that.
I don't think we can fund them based on my conversations with Guy. And at this point, I don't believe we're getting any bang for our buck in funding.
So two completely different
Two completely separate
issues,
things.
right? I'm happy to engage in number two. Number one, the premise of this conversation is that it doesn't matter. No one will challenge this, right? So splitting hairs over the question of like, should we, shouldn't we, feels moot and it feels semantic and it feels like an excuse that we're hiding behind so we don't have to take on the challenging question, which is number two, right?
Number two,
But
number two is actually easier for me.
Well, right. As a board, I think as a public entity, it's a more challenging question for us as a body, whatever our person.
I'm just looking at it from a legal standpoint.
Right, but again, enforcement is what matters. No one's going to,
Oh, so you're saying nobody's gonna hold our feet to the fire, so we're just gonna go ahead and do it anyway, even though
Absolutely,
the
yes.
law's written that way?
yes.
Yeah, well, I
100%
think that it's not okay.
100%, that is what I'm saying. And if we don't agree with that, I disagree with your reading of the law, and I would talk to Guy myself. I think this is worth challenging. I think this is an essential thing that we do for our community. If we want to split over pairs over sort of where it goes, I'm happy, I love that conversation, but I don't think we should hide behind, like, it will be difficult to execute as our way out.
So I would encourage you to have the conversation with Guy. His position is unequivocally that we should not be funding any of these organizations whatsoever.
I think the part where I get fuzzy with Guy is that I know it's his opinion as a human being.
No, it's,
No.
it's professional legal opinion that municipalities should not be funding not-for-profits, almost under any circumstances whatsoever. So I encourage you to have that conversation. with Guy. Specifically to TCR, I agree 100% on the, I believe Guy's interpretation. I rely on village council. I believe our council's interpretation of what municipalities can and can't and shouldn't spend taxpayer dollars on with respect to external not-for-profits. I do, however, completely agree with the importance of youth services and all of those things. And I believe the village should spend money on it directly and or through the Three Falls LDC, of which we are a member. I don't believe that TCR is in any way effectual or useful currently on that front. Regardless of the fact that it's likely not legal.
Take into account the fact of the library. The library serves the whole entire village of Trumansburg. It has absolutely no charge. It contributes to education and literacy. And everybody can use it. Same thing with the food pantry. It directly serves, there's a direct service that they can account for. And I have the figures here. They have the complete breakdown of who they serve, how many families, how many children, how many individuals, how much food they give out, what all their expenses are. We need those accountable numbers in order to get our in-kind services for, basically for what we pay for. Is basically how it's written.
Couple things. I don't think the numbers you have from the food pantry adequately convey are these village residents. Who are these people? We have a breakdown by age, which isn't super useful in terms of us achieving the goals for village residents for the like our constituents. Two, when the library, which I 100% agree, does all of these good things, there are also like administrative ephemeral things that they're doing. They're pursuing other grants. They're doing all of these other things, right? And those also serve a public good, even if it's not the actual giving out of books, right? In the same way, I think TCR serves a function, even if it's not actually, right? Even if they haven't actualized and presented a deliverable, the in-between phase, I think is still valuable, right? I think in the same way.
Well,
I just think their
disagree
position,
on
I just think it's very ambiguous.
After this fall, I completely disagree.
Well, I do think, right, the question of how well they're doing, again, is separate from, right, is
I
this a
don't think
legitimate
so.
public
How
policy?
can that be separate?
I actually think it's for the board to decide. I think it's a no one. I think both boxes get checked no. I think, in my opinion, currently, based on Guy's legal opinion, they don't check the appropriate boxes to be a considered not-for-profit A. And if they did, I would my current public stance is that they are not effective. So,
All right, well, I mean, I need to talk with Guy, is
Yeah.
what it sounds like. I don't think there's any
My
real.
read on the whole thing has been that what we can do is we can contract with nonprofits to do work that we as a village board or municipality would want to do otherwise. We can contract with a like for a for-profit, nonprofit, we can contract with anybody. If what we're doing is purchasing a service for our residents that we think is municipal service, that's something we should.
So then it would have to fall under something else under than contractual funding, right? Other than contractual funds.
no, I think it would be, if we want TCR to write a grant for us, we can pay them to write a grant for us. If we want
Right.
the library to provide XYZ services to include books and publicly accessible computers, et cetera, that we're not willing to do on the village property,
Exactly.
then we can. If we want to contract with the Ulysses Historical Society to maintain certain historical records that we frankly just don't want to touch, then we can. It gets a little fuzzier when we talk about, I think, the food pantry or Meals on Wheels, because we need to be contracting with them to do a specific service. Which could be defined, but it needs.
You don't believe the specific service is providing free food?
It has to be specifically to village residents, enumerated village residents, who are the
Okay.
village residents, how many village residents,
I know.
how often.
See,
And I
I
think
think that's where I disagree, because to me, a public service is being available for people to come get food if they need to. Like, to me,
Right.
that is a service that I would contract for. We don't need to know feed 3 people. We need to know that you're open and available from 9 to 5.
And this is why
It's
you have
just
to have the
a question of-
conversation, this is why you have to have the conversation with Guy, because we're spending village taxpayer dollars on a specific service for village taxpayers.
Right,
That's the defining piece.
right.
100%.
And it has to be enumerated and accounted for to be,
Right, but that doesn't mean it has to be
I think
John
it's-
Doe who lives
I don't
on.
need to know who it is, but I need to know how many village residents. How do they know they're village residents?
You have to fill out a thing with your address for the food pantry. There is a form you fill out.
More, my understanding, go back through this, it's either more that it has to be not just a public good, it has to be something that a municipality is allowed to provide. I'm not sure municipalities are. It's set up to provide food to people who need additional services in that way. I don't know that, the articles that I read are all about what is a municipal service that we as a government are meant to be providing. And if
Like,
we're not
legitimate
providing,
government, whatever the language is.
right, so I mean, we could say it's a public service to have, live music every day in the quad, but like, I don't know if that's. It's a public good, people can enjoy it, but I don't know if that's the point of municipal government to do necessarily. That might be an odd one because like,
It's a fun one because that's the one we do.
because, yeah, so I don't.
But we
that would
can do
be-
that because the farmer's market is ours, right?
I mean, we
But
could
it's
have, we could
still-
have a municipal car wash, but is that like in the interest of having the municipality provide that service to our residents? I don't know, right? So like, I think you need to have it, it has to be something that is a service that a municipality should be providing to start.
Right, I think that's part of your conversation with Guy to have is a public service. May not always be, but for the sake of this conversation, a public service is a public good. But not every public good is a public service.
Well, not every public service in like the colloquial sense is a legitimate municipal function, which
So
I think
we-
is what Ben's after here, right? Like, we
Right.
can think of like public good in a very general term, but like, is this something that we're actually empowered to do?
If we use the phrase public service to mean a municipal service.
Right.
Because it's public versus private. Ostensibly, it's a public good. But not every public good certainly is a municipal or public municipal service. Sometimes it's a distinction without a difference. Sometimes I think it's a big difference.
So like when you look through the NICOM guidance and the technical guidance, I think the things that jump out that seem reasonable are youth activities, which I think the library absolutely can and does provide.
Yes.
Historical association events, management of records, those sorts of things, those. seem
Food
like-
pantries were one.
Check, so I don't remember seeing that, but I'm happy to look through it again, or maybe if you've got the section, we can look at it again. But I think I would feel more comfortable with things that are listed certainly as areas of municipal benefit that we provide.
So I would suggest for the moment, we budget. I don't know exactly the mechanics of how to do this.
We leave the library the same, yeah? The 5,000?
I
Yeah.
don't know. Let's wait and see what Guy says when you pick his brain then.
Well, it sounds like the library is unquestionably in there. It sounds like the historical
If the
society.
contract is written properly.
Right.
If they provide
Well, didn't he write the contract you had?
books for certain hours, certain.
No, the
days to this
contract that
age.
the one for the food
Internet
pantry, the
access.
draft
Yeah.
that I did for the food.
Yeah.
No, he did not. I wrote it.
Good.
I
I feel like he would.
I think one thing we have done, even with the organizations that pass muster, is we have not gotten good documentation. Right, so
Well, that's stuff we have to do.
documentation, we have to do better. at.
Yeah.
And I think the library does and will qualify based on that. I think the Historical Society would.
There's some great irony here that us taking a closer look at this. The library being the sole survivor.
I feel like irony abounds. In
So
this-
much
in this whole thing. So I
Including,
think,
including our need to save time at the end of this meeting.
yes. So can we add, say, we'll just call it a total line. For all of these things, and I hesitate to even put a title on it, but just,
Can we just
Well,
do
it's
10 and then talk about it?
that suits me, but.
Well, I'm
You don't want to put any number
I'm
there.
not encouraging us to increase the amount of the Historical Society. I think that can
No.
stay at 500.
And shall that be funded for that, shall that be paid for this
I
year?
still would like
If
to
and
make
only
the
if
argument
it's
for the
signed.
food pantry though.
If and only if they sign whatever documentation we come up with out of
Great.
this process.
Yeah.
Food pantry, for the sake of argument.
That's the food net, correct?
No,
No,
I don't think
Okay, sorry.
So let me finish.
sorry.
I think food pantry, we can put a number in, whatever that number might be. I would lean towards something in the 1,000-1,500 range, subject to what this board is thinking. And then I think we have to zero out food net.
Yes.
Okay. Okay,
So I don't know, Marcia, if you had an idea of a number you wanted for food pantry.
Well, more than that, but that's okay. We'll take what we can get.
Anyone else have a thought as to dollar amount if
I'm just saying that our
If they-
contract,
if they
sorry,
pass muster?
our total contractual funding, I think, was like $7,500. So I thought, depending on what we Xed out of that, maybe we could make up with food pantry funds.
so you're taking 1,000 out of food net.
And 500 on the TCR, and I could see us putting that together into 1,500 for pantry.
Okay. So then that would make $6,500 then for contractual.
Yeah, well, 7,000 with the library, with the museum, the historical.
Oh, right,
Yeah,
7,000. So we can put that number in.
And then I will leave that highlighted pending further conversation or desire to increase or decrease.
All right.
All right, village historian, no change. Thank you, Sandy List. Farmers market, these are predetermined numbers from their budget, I believe, is that right?
Correct. Their contractual, if you care, their contractual is increasing because they're getting brochures, but I think maybe I addressed this before. They're getting brochures and some signage.
Okay, we've got village ETC.
The ETC committee, is seeking to get seasonal banners. We have the winter banners, but this all seasonal banners, that's the increase based on some actual costs.
Okay.
Food net contractual agency.
Then we get down to zoning. This is the other half of Tom's job. The contractual zoning publishing. Zoning.
Was zoning contractual was also just make it, he wanted to make sure that that made sense for you. The zoning contractual,
What are the notes there?
it's about
Ask
getting
about
engineering
it.
expenses by project. I think that this is when I moved. Let me just highlight that. Let me take another look at that one and make sure. I had erroneously put some MRB grant work in there. So let me just double check that number. Right, because it's
Right,
down.
so zoning contractual was EDR.
Okay, so then
I don't
when
think
this,
I don't think we need an allocation there.
you want to put 0 there. Okay.
Unless we're planning on hiring a consultant for the next phase of anything CPZR.
no, I mean, the only thing I could think of is someone to help us walk through adoption again, which. I don't think would happen this year. I guess it could happen before next June if we move pretty quickly, but. We could also get done with most of it, me doing it with I kind of crossing some T's and dotting some I's, so. I wasn't planning on going back to the ER.
So zero,
Yeah, zero.
okay.
We got zoning, publishing, legal notices, let's see, zoning and legal. We had at 10. I think we can drop that to 5.
Okay,
Planning is forever. Do we ever get a planner line? We'll leave those zeroed out.
okay.
Oh, yeah. Give up on that. Storm sewer.
And also the planning board then, nothing for the planning board. I don't think they have any things coming in. Okay,
Storm sewers contractual. That's usually 35 a year. I don't think there's any, Dusty didn't request any.
You didn't request any changes, that any of the stormwater management, comprehensive management, budget?
Yeah,
so is it strange that we haven't spent anything in that line to date? It makes me feel like I'm missing something.
Yeah, I think there should be.
Yeah, what is that line?
On there.
And I can look historically.
The latest plan I had was spending. They did a lot, was doing the field investigation. Identifying manhole covers and so forth. I think that was supposed to be that, I think that was happening.
So that's that and not from sewer? The GIS mapping
Oh.
came out of sewer.
Good point.
And
Yeah.
so does the manhole relining is coming out of sewer reserves and
That's-
not out of this.
Right,
line.
now, so the relining would,
So this line is very confusing.
well, so maybe it's not entirely useful. Let's see,
And I'm looking to see what if anything was spent out of that last year, which is the only thing I can
right,
pull up.
so. I could see an argument for the initial field investigation to fall under either I or. Under this line. I'll read the top. I'm not gonna pop it, I can read it.
but any culvert work, any culvert work is gonna come out of this line.
Okay,
Yeah, but, well, that's true. And the next slice of this work that they're planning on doing is, $24,500 for drainage area evaluation, which is a GIS mapping about using all the field study data to understand stormwater management in the village, so that will definitely, that doesn't have anything to do with
okay,
sewer, so there's at least 24,500 from that. And then it would be anything else. That we do culvert wise, that's part of it. Say, we're trying desperately to use the last of the. Disney money.
Right.
And then see if there's anything else that we want to go over on, but I don't know
We can leave it at 35.
if we're at a point to.
Leave it at 35, okay.
35
I can tell you that last year was 21,550, and you're right, the I&I grant is in there, and then some pipe, a grand in pipe.
So for the moment, I think 35 is.
I think
Okay.
we get five, makes sense,
Okay,
I think.
Okay, refuse and garbage will leave the same, that is out to bid. Currently, when is the bid return date?
March. First week of March, next week. I have got 0 proposals so far. But I'll make a note too.
Community beautification, we never know, so we'll leave that blank. Shade trees. Did we spend money on shade trees? We've allocated 5, looks like we spent 1. Assuming we want to keep the money available.
Is this, my line says not so shade trees.
It does.
If this is the risk mitigation program, we should keep it at 5. We're sort of resetting our plan.
Okay.
So that's correcting the wrong account code.
Landfill brush will leave the same. Okay, so now we're into the FICA retirement lines. Jess, you had a question about EMS state retirement?
I think I changed the what do you have for your EMS retirement number on your sheet, Roden?
Something different than you have.
Yep, so 72,267 is the actual projection from Meisler's. But the EMS budget is different, it's like 64, is that
Yeah.
right?
All right, we'll eat that too. How about that? 29,687. Don't forget that this fall.
That's right.
We have the conversation there.
Yeah, what is that? Is that 10?
It's all
Well, about 18?
$8,000 difference.
No, but plus the.
There was another
the
one here.
Legal line
Mhm.
was, what was the legal?
3 to 10,
7, so 15 more.
let's also, let me verify that 3,000 wasn't a typo.
I think that's right. I remember
Okay,
not 100%, but
so there you see the disabilities are populated.
Yes. And then there's health insurance, which is forever expensive.
Except less, projected less.
Hmm.
Hospital medical is projected less. And then, proposed less than prior.
Actually,
And that has to do with assuming a change in staffing.
Well, you had 3 of you in the front office last year when we made our budget.
We had 3 in the front office. This is also dependent, the DPW medical is in that.
Yeah.
Okay, very good.
Right, because we budgeted for 5 instead of 4.
Yeah.
But we more than made up for it on the EMS side
Mm.
Yep,
and on the police side.
yep.
Police principal fire truck, we paid it off, yay. Police principal safety, that's the code enforcement vehicle. We got the police vehicles.
So I don't know, Roden, if I should, do you see how I just have it below? I just want to, I'm not sure if we should just rename. So that lease is gone, but I have the same account number associated with one of the Tahoes. And I don't know if that's appropriate. You don't care about the account numbers, okay,
Because technically anything after the decimal is.
is proprietary, okay,
The leases are all 97.85.
okay.
There's.
The backhoe lease has not been used, it's being paid out of, yeah, and I have no,
That's fine.
is that fine? Okay,
I know we were going to pay it back, but we still didn't want to.
Yes.
But it's coming out of it.
and we're in the balances then for the reserves are in,
I see.
okay,
So we have DPW equipment reserve allocation of 40.
that is the backhoe lease coverage is the note and also a new truck.
Saving for a new truck. Let's see, DPW building reserve, we're gonna add 15. We budgeted in the fall for 200 to fire apparatus, that'll bring that account just over $1 million. So we've only got a couple $100,000 to go by next year for delivery of something.
truck.
Firehouse repair, we do 25 every year. Police vehicle, we're gonna need to bump at some point. But chief is requesting 15 this year.
So can I erase that part of the note that was left over from last year that says it needs to be 20 or 25 and
Yeah, you
Thousand.
can erase it, but let's remember that 15 a year is not gonna be enough. Going forward, because he leased vehicles this time around, we bought ourselves a few years.
okay, he is planning that it'll be 45,000 needed in 2027. Hence 15 this year, next and that year, okay. I'll make a note that says that, I think, okay.
Village, let's see, where are we? Police equipment reserve. Village building reserve, we have not added money to in a few years. There's almost $70,000 in that account. I don't know if we have any major plans for this building other than ongoing repairs at this point. that would want us, that would require us to need to start saving more. We haven't had to dip into it in a while. I think we did a little bit for the heating system a few years ago. There's 68,624, so we're creeping up on 70.
Thanks for putting the balances in there, by the way.
You're welcome.
That's very.
I don't know if anything else on my head, I don't know if you're aware of anything. I could talk with Dusty if he has any like thought, you know, some of the back and side about what he's worried about with the building.
I haven't heard
The
it.
last big repair, I mean, there was the HVAC work and then there was the side ramp here. The police steps,
What,
and now we're getting some nice, you know, cosmetic and functional work done in front.
That was gonna be without, there's a lot of need for at least cosmetic stuff. I don't know what's already.
Like
in the
painting?
docket, But,
Well, in the
Outside?
front office now, carpet paint.
oh, I mean, the exterior.
Yes,
Like, all of the installation of deck and stairs was all done with hardware that rusts, which is confusing to me. So when I look at the outside of this building, I find it very upsetting. I think there's a pretty
Oh.
intense need to do something. But that's not. You know,
We
we
have
have not
to-
beyond 68.
Yeah, so-
So, you know, I don't think that doesn't change the allocation.
okay,
I know, chief wants to still do some more work. Right, and in the police section. Just what are you looking for us to?
that was a question I had.
so I don't know that there's a need for allocation this year. Let's keep it, but let's look for spending needs.
Yeah, when I talked to chief, I just bumped into him. He said he was gonna think through that and talk to him. With Dusty, I suggested having, I mean, I think Clint could probably give him an idea of what he needs, but. Right.
And I mean, the fact that Clint can do the work. As long as we can find him the time on the clock.
Right.
Means all we're taking out of there is material costs, which is a big help.
Yeah.
Okay, EMS equipment we have from the fall budget, which was 10,000. I don't see it on the sheet.
Why is it not, yeah, what's that?
So I have 5.
So that's last year's funding.
Only 5 this fall.
Do you have that in front of
I
you?
can.
Okay. So, A235 should be 5,000.
All right, but
Yeah.
Okay.
So reading down the line, it's 5,000, 2,000, 40,000, 2,000. I just went way too fast. There's no way to
So
know that.
A237 should be 40,000.
Yes.
EMS vehicles 40, communications 2,
Okay.
capital reserve
Capital
0.
blank.
Is
maintenance
0.
Agreements is 10,816.
Yeah, I don't know what happens.
Fire equipment reserve I have is 40. That's
Okay,
2, I think just populated. At least on mine.
okay. Well, were the items still highlighted to check on? Let's go back up to revenues quickly. I did email Lisa Holmes at the county. She suggested that they're using a more conservative number for 2024. They're using a 1.8% number, so rounded up to 2%.
This is for sales tax.
This is sales tax, yep, sorry, non-property tax distribution by county, so if we use 2% actual, if we end up at 459. Actual, a 2% increase would be 468, so I'm actually thinking we'll punch in 465. For sales tax. So a little bit more conservative than the county estimate. And Jess, you checked on the utilities gross receipts, that is gonna remain 40, is that right?
yes,
Any concerns about that sales tax number?
I mean, that's always the way we do it, right? I think it's served us well to try and stay conservative within, reason.
Just the police crossing guard reimbursement number seems odd. How did we come up with 7341?
the police chief did, an analysis of the actual hours and school hours and coverage and days that the school is in session.
That's
So
what we're
that's his
expecting.
number. Yes.
Okay. I love non-round numbers.
Do you want to make it
fire
340?
inspection, These contracts. EMS billing receipts, so back and forth with Joel a little bit. There's some question about future billing relative to mutual aid calls, et cetera. So it looks like we're projecting 165. We budgeted last year 135. I think we should.
Does this mean we're taking out the inter-fund transfer?
Yeah.
No, actually, I found out because of the way I can't, I have to move it back. So I'll do that now. I just heard from Dwayne today.
So EMS billing is gonna stay in interfund transfer.
Yeah, which is so wacky, but okay.
So I'm open to suggestions. I mean, projection is 165. Joel is not thrilled with our billing company and maybe talking about making a change there. But if a change occurs, then that should generate more revenue with more efficiency. However, mutual aid could adjust if some of the things we're working on at the county level work, which would drop our mutual aid income. So I don't think I would go below 150. Whether we go 160, 165, that's, I think, what we have to decide here.
So I would say 150. I wouldn't go higher. This is a number that historically I always try to push higher, and our actuals come like 95, 97. You know,
And now we're actually having a bigger year finally.
right, yeah. But it would be.
So it's 150.
150, and I'm moving it back to
Interfund.
Excel 47, yeah. There is, for the record, something like $120 in EMS revenue other, which is from classes. But I'm gonna zero out that line unless you feel otherwise. Okay.
The last two, let me just make sure. Same numbers here. The last two numbers for our consideration that I think we might be able to play around with is. Don't forget to put that sidewalk band number in there, Jess.
We will do 15,000 this budget, this 24-25.
Yes.
Okay.
And that should zero out that account.
Yes, it will, with some interest.
There's some leftover sidewalk band money from the South Street section of sidewalk that can only be used for debt service.
Oh, for debts.
So it is because we have a sidewalk spending line, we can actually pull it. But it'll be zeroed out this year after we put it in this year's budget. The last two lines that I think we can play around with a little bit is the A3005 mortgage tax line. You know, we had said 20, it's projecting 26. I am okay with leaving it at 20. I also think we could bump it to 22.5. Bearing in mind that everyone's assessments just went through the roof, so anyone who sells is selling for higher valuation, which bumps mortgage tax up yet again. I'll leave comments about how it all flows to the county to someone else. But I think there's some wiggle room in that line that might justify. If we wanted to be aggressive, we could make it 25, but I think at least 22.5 makes some sense, unless anyone
I don't know about that.
strongly disagrees.
Yes.
I would prefer to yours.
All right, let's make that 22.5.
Okay.
And then the last one is interest on reserve accounts, A2402. I checked this morning, there's 2.28 million at NICLAS in our various reserve accounts. Does that include water and sewer?
No, well, it depends on which accounts you look at. We have three NICLAS accounts, so I'm not sure what report you pulled. It shows your whole position.
don't think it does.
But it does not include the funding from last year for those reserve lines, which is, what did we talk about today? 392,000, 362,000 that will be moved into those accounts.
Check, make sure I didn't pull her up. Yes.
I'm not coming up with.
So I have the wrong number, so 1, 2, 5, 6. 6, 3, 2, and how much are you gonna be adding, Jess?
So Roden, is it 362 or is it 392? I think it's 362.
362 is fine. It's close.
Okay. I can,
So there is approximately 1.6 million in the general reserve lines at NICLAS, yielding 5.25, which would be 85,000. So I would actually, I mean, let's do this way.
I can tell you the exact number. Actually.
1.62 million. So there's wiggle room there, I think. %, we're talking about 65,000. At 5%, we're talking 80,000. 62. Yeah.
362 is
So I-
correct.
At current rate, it's
340.
86,000. At 5%, it's 81,000. At 4%, it's 65,000. So we have to.
And we're in the reserve, sorry, will be 349. I don't know if that's okay.
So I would think 80 is not conservative. But I think we can make it 80.
So we had 70.
80.
We had 70.
We're making it 80.
Okay.
Okay.
Can Excel line 45, A4887 federal state aid grant, can that just be blacked out? Or grayed out?
I don't know what you just said.
Okay, I'm sorry. The federal and state grant aid for sidewalks
That's the one.
account
You can't black
A4887.
it out because we just applied for one.
Oh, that's why it's back. Okay,
So if we get DOT money for West Main Street, that's where that income's going.
okay, thank you.
Sewer budget.
Okay, so I'm showing currently. Once we reconcile all the numbers, a fairly large increase.
What's your total?
For which, So Jess, what do you have for your bottom line on the expense side? Total expense number at the bottom.
$3,536,891. No?
I have 355,984.
That's what I have.
Okay, so let me pull the calculation differently.
Okay, 355. What do you have for total on the revenue side?
237,422.
Oh, I have a much smaller number. Okay.
Did you say, let's see, oh, wait, would it show me?
So starting with your,
Sorry,
so interest, starting with interest at 7,000. So 7,465, 40, 500, 2,500, 500. 7,341, 1,660, 18,000, blank. I have a blank line there.
oh, that's what it is. I have that one.
So zoning,
Yeah,
so zoning's 2,500. 700, nothing for planning board, 1,500 stop DWI, then we've got fire and EMS at 329,085, 912,306. I have a blank line for some reason. Interest and earnings line I have zeroed out, but then interest on reserves I have at 80. Rental wireless at 40, building permits at 47. Skipping down, I don't have anything till mulch dial truck at 2,500. Disability reimbursement I have at 0. AIM at 12,550, mortgage checks 22,500, chips at 45. Farmers market, business sponsorship 6,000, promo $175, market grant 0, vendor fee 7705, market music sponsorship 4,400, sidewalk grant 0, sidewalk band 15,000, and then intrafund 150,000.
For 2221422.
Yes.
The bottom one? Oh, no, yeah, I have that. I have it right there.
2,221,422.
Okay, yeah, I'm up to a big raise. I have the EMS thing in twice. The revenue, EMS. Do we have a sense of what our general fund balance is?
So the unencumbered balance, so this is May end 23, May 31st of 23. So we're always a year in arrears for that. Was 526,559. And that's the cash basis one, which GAAP accounting rules don't use anymore, but we still use because it's actual cash in the bank, right? Remember that whole changeover?
I mean, vaguely, I remember some drunkenness, I don't know the details. You know,
So we used to be able to choose cash basis accounting, which says money in, money out. This is how much money we have. Municipal standards switched to accrued based, which means if we charge a municipality for EMS and they pay us in January for a whole year's service, we're only supposed to count 5 months worth in that fiscal year, right? So Dwayne gives us both numbers now. And we historically have used the cash basis number for our budget because we actually have the money.
526,000.
So 526,559, which is down a fair bit from the prior year because of due froms to water general. Now, again, this is last May, so when the water rate increases by the end of this May, I'm hoping we're starting to make that back. But for the moment, as of last May, it's 526,559, which is about 17% of our budget. So we're still in that healthy range.
Well, but we're no longer.
But not so,
above.
yeah, not so high that we feel super comfortable. So we could, we're gonna have to use some fund balance. How much will depend on, which is really why I need that projection for how quickly we're gonna make back the water. So if we're comfortable that we're gonna make back the water quickly enough to refund general, what water borrowed from general, then we can use more of fund balance. Otherwise, we're gonna have to start trimming somewhere on the expense side. And we're gonna have to target a tax rate that we're comfortable. levy. Again, the danger of holding it flat for multiple years in a row is if we did not use any fund balance and we did not trim anything, we'd be looking at 787 for a tax rate of 725, which is large.
Almost 18% increase.
So I think in the interest of time, I think what we should think about is, I need that water number.
Okay.
And then,
Is there anything I can help you with that?
No, I have it half started. I have a calculator started. I need to put in real values.
Just, we haven't gone line by line, but we're looking at $140,000 more revenue than expenses, at least currently with the budget for water this year, so.
So-
Feels like the right spot.
so my recommendation is that for Monday night, we'll have a sense of water. I hope I'll also look at water more closely. So that we can be comfortable with what we're doing with the unencumbered balance. To manage the rate increase and also look at the expense side to see if there's anything we can trim anywhere. And then we'll also have to have an idea of what tax rate do we want to target. It's currently, it's been 725 forever. Are we talking 730, 740, 750? I think above 750 starts to feel like a big number. With my recommendation will be whatever that number is. If we can hold it there next year, even if we could do a decrease, that we hold it there. Unless it's a mess. I mean, if we're talking like $1 decrease, then we're gonna need to do something. But if it's if we could, if whatever, so we've held it at 725 for 6 years, 5 years. Whatever this next number is, if we can hold it there for another 5 years, that to me, that incremental step and hold for tax rates is better than this.
Could not agree.
I agree.
And knowing that we're gonna see this outsize, and I'll get from Jay what our projected next year's assessment is. You'll have that, what the village-wide assessment is based on these increases. He can send that to me tomorrow. So we'll know it, we'll be pre-planning next year's budget by knowing what next year's total assessment value that we'll be working with is, which is this July's.
I'm very curious to know what the actual number is, because I think we go off the idea that it's 20%, which may be wild, but that's for the whole county. But if we go off of that, I would actually rather see us step into that over a couple of years. In much the same way we kind of step up water, we step up other things. If we get a 20% increase in our levy in 1 year, that is massive, and that is a huge impact on people, and it's not something we need. So I would actually, if that were the case, to game that out, play that hypothetical, I'd actually see us drop down and then work back into it as a way to step it up slowly for people as we go.
I think the guiding principle though is to try and moderate the change. Right, like, so if we think about it as moderate the overall rate, not the rate, moderate what you're actually paying. So reducing what actually paying.
Right, I think you have to
Reducing
play
those
the
changes.
combination of the two, right? That it's not just an us and it's not just an assessment, it's a both. And I would say that I would actually look to optimize kind of slow and steady increases over time rather than large jump and then hold forever.
In fairness, I mean, we haven't done large jumps. I think there's a place.
We have, right, we have it on our rate, but if the assessment goes up 20%, if we hold our rate steady, that's a 20% jump on the levy. That I don't think we would need right away, and I would rather have us ease people into that than optimize for the, like, it's nice to pick a number and hold it, because there is a philosophical basis to that. But in a world where assessments are skyrocketing, people aren't gonna feel it that way. They're not gonna understand it that way. It's not gonna look that way on their bill. What they're gonna see is their bill skyrocket. Even if we're talking about how we're holding it steady. It works, us holding it steady works if things are jumping in 2, 3, 5% regular kind of bumps. Not when it does a 20% jump in there.
That is true, but we used to have a tax stabilization. We have used forever. So I think there's a sort of open situation where we maybe drop it down, but not as far as we need to. And then we can.
Yeah, no, I think I think you're
Those-
smart about it.
Yeah.
But I would rather err on the side of having more incremental bumps. Than that, I would rather smooth that impact over out for people. Than focus too heavily on just keeping a straight rate.
That's how I feel. That's how I would like to be staffed out.
Generally sad.
Right.
Plus, I think I read too that the school is short like $1.5 million. So, you know, it's coming to everybody with both barrels.
But I mean, not that whatever happened across the street is in any way appropriate, but people are pissed. And they're, and mostly because they don't understand the whole spread of it, but if someone's gonna see their tax go up 20% in 1 year, I understand why they're looking for someone to shake a fist at.
Because you're not
Well-
making 20% more in
Right.
income.
I would just, it goes without saying, but I would point out that when you don't build anything for 2 decades,
Well, it's true.
this is what happens. And I would be curious, and this is not pointing fingers at anyone, but I would be curious as to how many of the most vocally upset are equally vocal about not allowing anything to be built. There's an irony built in. And yes, people get pinched. And certainly people who've lived here for a very long time and are now living on a fixed income get pinched, probably the hardest, but,
I mean, this has been taught to us.
Yeah.
This is where we've had
Heading.
we're coming up on the first.
5 years we've talked.
Well,
Yeah,
Right.
Right.
A lot of, some of the motivation behind.
and the county's been talking about this for,
yeah, I mean, last year's State of the Village, I threw out the $500,000 median assessment value by 2030, and I guess I overshot the date.
So going back to the here and now. If we put in 75,000. That brings us to 7.42 at the rate. 2.4% increase of the rate. So I'm just gonna throw out that to me feels like a reasonable target. Obviously, there will be shifts, so I think we should stick with that. I'm not quoting that, but just as like a target to stay. That feels reasonable. 300. Then you get killed the whole time, sorry, I apologize.
I'm glad someone's paying attention to the details.
Ben, what's your, and gentlemen, what's your bottom line expenditure? Your expenditures?
35598
And so Jordan, how can I get a copy or check where I'm missing?
I'm gonna send you this, if we can go.
So if we did use 75,000 of unencumbered balance, which is a big number, we would still have, after that spend. We would still have an unencumbered balance at 14.7% of our budget, so we're not dipping too low. When I have, you know, if we know we're gonna have water money back faster, that'll make me feel better. I'd still like to look at the expending side to see if there's anything we feel like we can trim up a little bit.
That's what I mean, I don't mean to propose it, just as far as like a target,
Yeah.
it makes sense of. We need to raise 75,000. That's gonna be for that, at least for me.
Which will mean we will have to explain that if we do, you know, when we have a rate increase for the first time in 6 years, that 5 years, sorry. It is on current assessments.
So what do you want
not
to show
the
me?
letter
an
of the
error?
guys.
Right.
That'll be an important part. All right. Anything else for budget tonight? We'll plan on putting this to bed, I hope, on Monday night.
Oh. That's cool. Okay.
That's great. You gave us your insurance sheet. And then I can check.
We'll plan on putting this to bed hopefully Monday night and then also finishing up water and sewer or looking at water and sewer, which should hopefully be somewhere.
Yeah, the sewer does just look at the numbers from Camden, so then I double check that we'll have that by then.
Here it is.
Okay. Anything else budget related for this evening?
I mean, I did actually want to ask the rate increase of 3%. And I have something I'd like to show as a good time.
No, it's not. Hold on a second. Any other public budget discussion?
No,
Thank you, Ben.
Okay, then I would entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss a couple of personnel matters, one in EMS, one in the main office. Unless there's any other departments we need to discuss as well.
So,
Second.
All in favor?
aye.
Okay, we are in executive session. Do you want to stop sharing your screen there, Ben? Ready?